evening, everyone. I'm Sherry Werb, and I'm director of the Center for Learning, Literacy, and Engagement. And we're just so thrilled that you're here with us at the Library of Congress, both on site and online tonight for this conversation between the Library of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden, and Washington Nationals pitcher, champion reader, and literacy ambassador, Sean Doolittle. This is going to be a fun night. We've got a lot of energy here. We're excited about our new partnership with the Washington Nationals, also known as the Team That Reads, and their important work this year on literacy. We hope you'll join us for Library of Congress Night at the Nationals on August 30th, when the Nats are playing Oakland A's. And if you attend that game, you'll see Dr. Hayden throwing out the first pitch. Perhaps Sean will give a pitching lesson on stage tonight. We'll see. The conversation tonight is part of a new initiative we've just launched called Live at the Library. Every Thursday night, we're keeping the Jefferson Building open until 8 p.m., and you can visit exhibits and reading rooms, participate in various programs, and spend time with your friends and colleagues at the library after hours, purchasing food and drinks, shopping, or even just taking photos. We've got great ones here, opportunities. We invite you to return here for our many other events and amazing collections. Next Thursday evening, our Summer Movies on the Lawn series begins, and they start at sundown every Thursday evening from July 7th to August 4th on the southeast lawn of the Jefferson Building. And all the films we show are part of the library's National Film Registry. Our first film will be Top Gun, the classic version, not the new one. In addition, Afro-pop band LEK will perform before the movie starts, so we invite you to that event as well. I have one more event for you to put in your calendars, our National Book Festival. It's returning to an in-person event this year on Saturday, September 3rd at the Washington Convention Center. It's free to the public, and we hope to see you there. Some of America's most beloved writers will be there too, and I want to assure you that we'll have a few events about sports. The lineup of writers will be officially announced on July 14th. Now, I have a few small housekeeping notes before we get started. I know we have many Sean Doolittle fans with us here tonight. We'll have an opportunity for you to ask your questions at the end. We'll have mics in the aisles, so be thinking about your questions. However, Sean will not be able to sign any items tonight. So, sorry about that. Thank you for joining us at Live at the Library, and now it's time to welcome Dr. Hayden and Sean Doolittle to the stage.
Oh, they're going to start like they're at a game now. Look at this. Oh, my goodness. I knew you were like a big deal. But this is something. And thank you. You like to read, too, so that's good. So let's get started. Let's get started. This is so cool.
This is awesome.
Well, they had warned me about the moo. See? Okay, full disclosure, I'm from Chicago. And I live in Baltimore. So, you know, I'm conflicted all the way, but I'm a baseball fan too.
All right.
So thank you for being here and everything, because I understand though that one little girl thought they were booing you. And she got so upset.
She did, but once they explained, no, they're saying his last name's Doolittle.
Yeah, she got that. So where did your love of reading start, though? Because you are a real reader.
Reading was always something that was very strongly encouraged when I was growing up. My mom was a teacher's aide. She worked at the elementary school and middle school. Now she works at the high school in my town. My grandmother, her mom was a teacher as well. So a family of teachers. It was always, there was always an emphasis on your education and your schoolwork, and that came before any baseball practice or any game. You have to get all your homework done before you can go play. And so like when we would go maybe down the Jersey Shore for the summer, we had to go to the library and pick out a book, a beach book, so that we had something to read. And I remember when I was in middle school, I had a teacher, Miss Harris, who one of our ongoing assignments throughout
I bet teachers like
the
that.
school season.
Oh, very good save.
What the school year was, we had to keep a journal, and you had to read at least 20 minutes 3 times a week, and that kind of got me into the habit of reading. I was in like 7th grade, and I read Into Thin Air by John Krakauer, which is like a really long book about climbing Mount Everest, and like way above like that reading level. It took me the whole school year to finish, but I was hooked. When the Scholastic Book Fair would come to school, that was always like one of my favorite days. I usually brought home Calvin and Hobbes, which kind of counts as a book, I guess. But I liked looking at all the books, seeing all the new Goosebumps that had just come out.
Goosebumps.
So yeah, I guess it was something that I gravitated to pretty early on.
And you just kept going.
Well, I took a break, like, I think in like high school and college, like, there's certain books you have to read in high school. Some of the classics, some of which I liked, some of which I didn't. I probably didn't put forth enough effort into reading them because I circled back and read them again, like, once I was done school, and I realized I was like, oh, I guess I see what they were getting at, Turns out this actually is a pretty good book, Like The Jungle was long, but it was good, and I was like, high school me was like, what is going on, like, so. Like I would say, like after college, and really like what the biggest change was in around 2016. I was still playing for the Oakland Athletics, but I started to work really hard on the mental side of my game. We work so hard on training physically, but sometimes we don't work that hard on the mental part. And I was looking for a better, healthier way to kind of decompress after games. And I tried video games and Netflix and like doing different things to kind of decompress after a game, unwind, and I ended up picking up a book, and I was like, this is way better. I like this better. It helped me unwind after games and come down and really separate baseball from when I come home to my wife and the dogs, and help me find a little bit more balance, help me escape and kind of occupy my mind in another way. So really here in the last, I guess 6 or 7 years, I've really like fallen in love with reading again, and trying to promote it as much as I can.
I understand then you said escape, that you really like fiction. You're not a nonfiction type.
I gravitate more towards fiction. I like fantasy fiction. I like dystopian fiction. I like reading as a way to escape a little bit, like you mentioned, like we talked about before. But I think like the awesome part about that genre is there are so many parallels and metaphors to current issues, social issues, cultural issues that we're dealing with now in the real world. They're taking place in these books, and it might be taking place in this magical faraway place in outer space or in another world, But the parallels are there, and you're still getting something out of it because you're still exercising your brain, and it's making you think about these things. Maybe it's just not they're not handing it to you. You know, it's not nonfiction, but you're seeing the way that the characters are dealing with some of the situations and some of the oppression that they're fighting or trying to rise up against, and the authors will use their life experience, their backgrounds, wherever they come from, to kind of weave these messages and these themes into, even a fantasy fiction book. And so it's really, for me, it's my favorite because it's the best of both worlds. You're still having to use your brain and think, but you're also, escaping a little bit. In the off season, I will read some nonfiction. Maybe some baseball books or something.
Oh, well. Or fiction, however you do that. Well, before I ask you about one of your favorite books, that Escapism, and your author, I have to ask you, and in fact, when some of my colleagues knew you were coming, and they said, ask him this, ask him that. So here's one. We understand that you bring a book whenever you're on the road and with the team. The question is, what do your teammates think about that? Here you are on the road with a book.
They're used to it now, I think, and most of the time the stuff I read around the field is stuff that I think is helping me, like I touched on before, like mentally prepare for a game. So we have an awesome mental skills coach that works with guys in and around the clubhouse and the team, and through him, I've been reading a lot of philosophy. We do some Stoic philosophy and Buddhism, and working on I'm trying to find a little bit of balance before a game, because I'm going to come in a pressure situation late in the game, and I need to be in the right headspace for that. And I think everybody gets to that point, differently. But I need to kind of be able to calm myself before the game so that I can manage my energy levels throughout the day, so that I'm not overamped before the game. I don't expend all my energy in the bullpen. I need to chill out sometimes, really. But then sometimes too, there have been times during a rain delay, or if I know I have the day off, I might pull out another book, and my teammates will be like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And it'll be some weird fantasy book, and they just look at me like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's kind of like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings," and they're like, "Oh, cool," and
You have to translate a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, well, there's wizards and there's magic, and this kingdom is being overthrown, and they're like,
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your reading kind of informs and helps you with your pitching.
It can.
Wow.
I think for me, the way that my brain works, I can only focus on baseball for so many hours of the day before I'll start overthinking things and driving myself crazy. So I need another outlet. Reading's been absolutely one of those outlets. Spending time with my wife and dogs, but also too, there are things that I've learned through reading. There are books that can help me, especially mentally, prepare for getting ready to pitch and stuff like that.
You are one of the best ambassadors for reading. Read and you can be like Sean. Oh, wow. Now that's really something. Now, the other question, do you ever take it into the bullpen? That's what they say. Where is the book?
No, it's usually in my backpack or in my locker. But no, we do have iPads in the bullpens now, and that's where all of our scouting reporting information is, and we have video of the opposing hitters. So I bet I could probably load an ebook on there.
I think you should. Just sneak it in.
So if you see me out there, I got my feet up on the fence,
really
and you see a guy that's just like,
you're reading? You heard it here first.
Look at. He'd be like, he's either pouring over those scouting reports or he's in the middle of something.
Or he's on the second chapter of favorite book.
He's in the middle of a chapter and he can't stop. That phone rings, they're like, get ready, you have to warm up. And I'm like, hold on.
Oh, that would really be great. As a librarian, we would love that. Can't stop now. I have to read this. Well, I looked up as a librarian. There was an article in Sports Illustrated, and it's about you, and the headline said, "An activist and a bookworm," that you are the conscience of baseball. And as a librarian, you know, that did it for me. Because you're like a role model for children and teens, and you're making reading cool. So when you go out, yeah, you are. I mean, and you did a story time.
I'm cool?
Yeah. Yes.
No.
Yeah, you read as much as I do.
Aaron's backstage. Aaron, did you hear this? Dr. Hayden said I'm cool.
Yes, you're cool. Yes. And so you get out, you did a story time at the Arlington Public Library.
Yeah.
So what did you read, but also what did you tell the kids?
We read a book called Baseball Is, and it was really cool. Like, I read the book, and then the kids got to ask questions, and that was really fun. It was I think it was the third event we've done as part of our summer reading. We also do reading for kids and fans, I guess. They're kids' books, but you guys can come if you want. At Nats Park before Sunday day games. Up around like 12:15, we'll be up there on the second level. We'll be reading, and we do partner with the public library for that. And the kids, if the kids read books throughout the summer, they can earn free tickets to Nats games.
Nice.
So it's kind of like our version of the Pizza Hut Book It. So we don't have the cool hologram buttons, but we do. You know, we have Nats tickets.
Game.
So
that's pretty good.
But it's cool. The kids. Some of the questions that we get are really fun, and then we'll sign some autographs, and it's awesome to get out into the community a little bit and to promote libraries, right? Because I think libraries have a really important role to play, especially now in what we're going through in our country. They provide a safe space. They provide a community center. They are really integral. I mean, you look at the way librarians have stood up to these people from hate groups that have come in and tried to disrupt some of the programs that they have going on. And like, librarians are heroes because they're on the front lines of some of this stuff, defending people. And so I think right now, like, libraries more than ever have a really special role to play. So I'm really proud that, you know, the Nats have partnered with the public library, and I've been able to be a part of that. It's been really special, and, you know, I get to hang out with the kids and read some books. So it's a win-win.
Do you recommend any books?
To the kids?
Yeah.
Sometimes they ask, you know, what my favorite books were when I was their age and stuff like that, and so I'll share some of the stuff that I read, and a lot of times they look at me funny, but, you know, and for kids that age, like, we're talking maybe like ages probably 5 through 10. They're a little bit younger, and so I think at that age, it should be fun. Reading should be fun.
Yes.
So that find something that you like, whether it's baseball. For me at that age, I remember like I was super into sharks. And when we got to go to the library at school, I always went straight for this shark book. And like most of the time I just looked at the pictures, but like there were some shark facts in there. And you know, but there were also, it was on the stack next to all the sports books, and I read a lot about baseball and football and basketball and stuff like that. Like, find something at that age. It can be a graphic novel. It can be a comic book. Like, whatever wherever you're at interest-wise, because I mean, you start talking about literacy rates, we don't need to get that deep into it, but like we should be helping kids like find a way to enjoy it.
Yes.
And so like I really don't have very many titles to recommend. I'm just like, hey, like what do you like? What do you like? What do you like to do? You like baseball? Like, hey, we'll find you some baseball books. There's a Nat Geo book. It's called Baseball by the Numbers. It's a kid's book. I wrote the introduction for it, so I'm a published author. So sometimes I'll plug that, you know.
Why not?
You know.
You do a book signing.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
So that aspect, though, of just encouraging them to enjoy it. It shouldn't be like a punishment.
No, it
Finish
shouldn't.
your broccoli or something.
Or yeah, finish your vegetables and go read 2 chapters.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it's about, is finding something that they like. I always checked out baseball books. I read, there was an author named Matt Christopher, and they pulled one of his books for me when I was getting a tour, and it was, I got goosebumps. Not the book. I got.
You like that too.
I did like I did like those. I read a lot of the Goosebumps. Matt Christopher wrote sports books about all different sports. That I loved those. So you know, find something that you like and maybe try to learn something about it or read about it. You know.
The librarians met here last weekend. You could have really been a hit. You've just touched on everything. Now, do you ever recommend books to adults? Because they know you're a reader, and so they say, hey, Sean, what's
yeah, I think one of my favorite parts now about social media, and there's not a lot left, but one of the things I like is like there's a pretty cool corner of book Twitter where people are exchanging book titles and recommending, well, you know, because sometimes I would take pictures of the books that I had bought or read, and people would say, well, if you like this, check out this next time you go to the bookstore or library. So I will recommend books if people ask, but I've also had people be like, you know, what are you reading right now? And I'll tell them like the name of this fantasy series I'm reading, like, oh, I'm on book 2 of.
I was going to ask you about independent bookstores and which one you like, so I think you're calling.
Yeah. But I'll be like, I'm on book 2 of the Raven Shadow series. It's by Anthony Ryan, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you know, don't worry about it. You know, so like, I do, but I like getting recommendations from people so that, you know, I don't stay too much in my bubble of what I like to read. Because like I said, like I think it's important to read books by authors who have different life experiences than you, because that gets woven into their writing. It's not super heavy-handed, but like it's important to get those. It's important to try to see things through someone else's eyes, and you can get that in books written by people from different walks of life than what you've been through.
Like the author that we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
You like Octavia Butler.
Oh, yeah.
When I saw that you really liked her.
You can clap for Octavia Butler.
Yeah, it's okay. One of your favorite books of all time? Parable of the Sword.
Yeah.
And so what is it about that book?
How much time we got?
Because she's from a different background and
Yeah.
quite interesting.
So I think that book is my favorite for so many reasons. I think because you can read the book on so many different levels. It works on a number of different levels. It can be a dystopian story about a world overrun by corporate greed. The people are living in walled communities. Climate change has wreaked havoc on the environment. There's massive political and social upheaval. There's violence, and it's this bleak landscape. And Lauren, the protagonist of the story, ends up basically escaping and traveling up to Northern California, attracting people to her community that she wants to build called Acorn. And she starts this religion, but it's loose. It's loose because she's still working on developing it as she goes, and that's called Earthseed. And I love it because it ends on somewhat of a positive note, which not a lot of dystopian books do. They're going for a little bit of a utopia, but like not all the way, because like she says, like she acknowledges that like it will never be perfect. Like there will always be something to change or to work on. But you could read it as a feminist story. You could read it as it's Afrofuturist. What's eerie about it now, thinking about it in the times that we're living in now, that book was written in 1993. It's set in the future in 2024.
Oh. We only have 2 years.
So I think it's remarkable to think about what Octavia Butler had been thinking about, these issues that she had been thinking about. And I mean, she was really spot on, unfortunately, about a lot of them. And the book is, it's as much about survival in the immediate, the day-to-day, what Lauren has to do to survive in this world. But it's also almost like a guidebook for how to make the world a better place. Like, yes, you're trying to get through the daily struggle, but you have your eyes fixed on a better vision for the future, a better world, massive change for the better. And I think there's so many lessons in that book that we can apply to where we're at today. There's another book, Parable of the Talents, came out 5 years later, and she had a third book in the works that was never finished and obviously never published. But Parable of the Talents, like most second installments of a trilogy, is a little bit darker. It doesn't quite have the ending. It doesn't wrap up very nice. But there was a third one coming. It was going to be called Parable of the Tricksters, but I cannot recommend Parable of the Sower enough. If anybody hasn't read it, I strongly recommend checking it out. Or if you have read it, I'm going to start reading it again, because when I was prepping for this, I was like, man, this is so on the nose. Like, I want to revisit it. So she's one of my favorites, and that's absolutely one of my favorite books.
And she came from a totally different background.
Yeah, she came from a very different background. She grew up in Pasadena. Being a black woman in the science fiction fantasy space, she was a trailblazer. And if you look at that genre, it still has a lot of room to improve. It's dominated by a bunch of white dudes, and they're writing about basically like the fantasies that they're writing take place largely in like what would be like medieval Europe. So like to find a science fiction fantasy author who's a black woman who's writing about a dystopian hellscape in America that has all of these things, all of these issues that people have been sounding alarms on for a long time. She kind of turned the industry on its head a little bit, and people didn't see it coming. And I think it's taken her maybe longer to be appreciated as more time has passed since that novel, as more people realize how prophetic it was. I mean, we were looking at her notes backstage, and the way that she dove into these different issues of racism and class disparity and climate change and stuff like that. It's fascinating the way that she gets all of those into a very readable and page-turning story without it feeling super heavy-handed and still being, very accessible.
So those are the types of books you gravitate towards.
Yeah. I love, and I think that's why I like, this fantasy stuff. Like, it's a lot of current event issues that are wrapped up in worlds that might look a little bit like ours, but they're dealing with the same issues, and these people who are marginalized and oppressed are trying to break the cycle and do something and create some positive change. And escape, and I think there's a lot of lessons that you can learn from it. It also works, and it's just a cool story. Like, there's a magician who's like doing some cool stuff. Like,
So that
sometimes
helps.
that's cool
heavy.
too. Sometimes,
heavy.
sometimes that's enough. Like, so.
So are there characters in some of these books that you identify with in your personal or as a player too?
Oh, I don't know about that. Shoot.
You can hear him. He's going through his card catalog. Okay, it's a
I don't really know if I can necessarily say that I identify with them. There are characters that I think are inspiring, like Lauren from Parable of the Sower. I don't think I'm cool enough to do any of that stuff. Like some of the stuff they get into is pretty wild, and so it's not necessarily that I see myself in the characters. I think it's more so like drawing inspiration and almost learning from them as I'm reading the books.
Now you did a little, when speaking of cool, and you did a little shout out to your wife.
Yeah.
Telling her that. So we know that she's an avid reader too.
Yeah.
So do you all ever like get in a book fight?
A little bit.
How does that work?
A little bit. I'm currently winning. She's got 3 degrees, and I'm sitting here at the Library of Congress, talking with you.
Whoa.
But I think we balance each other out in reading, and I think in life in general. She reads a lot of nonfiction, a lot of stuff that has to do with current events or social issues, or maybe even stuff that's tied to what she's been studying. She studies theology, and she's taking a break from school right now. So sometimes she reads things to brush up or stay fresh, and she'll encourage me to read those, and she'll make recommendations, and I'll recommend a book about magic, and
that's gonna help.
And she's gotten like halfway through a couple of my recommendations. I did get her to read Parable of the Sower, and she absolutely loved it. Okay. She really did, and it was really cool to hear her, close the book and be like, "Did you know about this?" Like,
I recommended it.
Yeah, I've read it.
So it sounds like it's that's how you got it.
Yeah. So.
Well, the bookstore person that just called. We heard, though, that you really like the independent bookstores.
Yeah.
And so you travel a lot. Do you visit bookstores when you're in town?
Yeah, I try really hard. I started, really doing it in 2019 at the beginning of the season. One of the things I love most about my job, and there's a lot of things, is that I get to travel and I get to go to a lot of really cool places in different cities around the country. And throughout my career, I've tried really hard to get out and explore the cities. I think it's an awesome opportunity, even if it's just going for a walk, leaving the hotel and going for a walk, or trying to figure out public transportation and, get off the grid a little bit, get away from maybe like the touristy areas of the city. And, finding an independent bookstore a lot of times will get you off the beaten path and into, the real parts of some of these cities. So it's been an awesome adventure. I love supporting, a local business that's doing good for the community, that's not Amazon. So it's a win-win, really. And I've really enjoyed, like I said on book Twitter, like being able to share where I went and then getting recommendations from other people about different bookstores that they really liked that I could check out the next time I go there. So it's been really fun. In DC, we are absolutely spoiled with awesome independent bookstores. So,
could you share a few of your favorites though from
in
around
DC?
the country? Around the country.
I'll give you my favorites in DC. I want to give them a shout out. I love Capitol Hill Books. So I've tried a couple different ways of going in there, and sometimes I've tried to go in like with a plan, or like I'll look online and I'll be like, I'm gonna go after like this book, but you gotta just go in cold, and like just be willing to spend like a couple hours, like just going through, like you'll be amazed at what you find in there. 3 stories of floor-to-ceiling books, and it's just so much fun. Like it's an awesome space. They run an awesome Twitter account, so that's absolutely one of my favorites, and it's one of the things I tell people to check out when they come to DC. We also really like East City Bookshop, and Solid State on H Street. Those are kind of like our home. Those are like, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know.
But traveling around, like I've gotten to check out some really cool ones. Let's see. I'm trying to think of different cities. I played for the Mariners last year. There's a really cool bookstore called Elliott Bay Books in Seattle.
Right.
Vroman's in Pasadena, and LA was really cool. Majors and Quinn in Minnesota. Our hometown bookstore back in Oak Park in Illinois is called the Book Table. That's awesome. Books and Books in Miami is really cool.
This is quite a crowd.
Yeah. Hey, Philly bookstores. What am I thinking of? Shakespeare and Company.
Oh. Yeah.
They have a cool thing there. They have a printing press in the bookstore. So like anything that's public domain, you can go in there and like they'll make the book like right in front of you, and it's really cool. I'm just sipping on a coffee, like watching it come together, and you can pick out which cover you want.
We do have a Gutenberg Bible over there.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so just if you want to get inspired.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool.
I guess I should also say McNally Jackson in New York City. They have a store in Soho and in Brooklyn. That's where I started. That's where I came up with the idea. So I guess I have to shout them out as well. The one in Soho is my favorite. That sounds so snooty.
Well, that's where it is. It's okay.
I heard it though, and it didn't.
It's okay. It's okay.
But it's got a coffee shop inside, and so like I'll grab like a bunch of books and kind of sift through and narrow down, and it's just I could spend hours doing it. I love it.
So I can imagine in your house, the books are everywhere.
Oh yeah, everywhere. They're doorstops, coasters are just books. Like furniture, like we made the whole TV console out of books, so we just stacked it up. No, we'll try to go through. We'll try to purge every so often and donate ones that maybe we haven't gone back to, or that we haven't read in a while. Ones that we've read a couple times, and we can do it because both of us. I really like holding the book. Like it's probably more like environmentally responsible to read ebooks, which but I'm trying to, in my head, I'm like, well, if we donate them and then other people go on to read it, like it'll be worth it, maybe. But there's some that I want on my shelf in the house so that people know how smart I am when they come in.
Oh no.
Yeah, like you're coming, like you better bring your A game. Like look at this. Look at this.
See, I was getting all excited about all this. It's like, oh, that's for show. Okay, but that's all right. That's all right. So you do reread books, obviously.
Not very often, but there's just so much good stuff out there. Like, I don't rewatch TV shows. I don't really reread books. Like when there's so many. There's always something new coming out. There's always the way the world is changing so quickly. Like there's always a new topic that I want to dive into that's piqued my interest. I want to learn more about. Like there's always something coming down the pipe that I want to check out. So rereading Parable of the Sower will be the first time in a long time that I've reread a book. But I think it's an appropriate book for the times that we're in.
I'm definitely going to get it.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever thought about writing yourself?
Yeah, I thought about it for like a couple minutes. And then I was like, how does anybody do this? And I actually think about that quite a bit, like when I'm reading a book, and I'm like, how do you come up with this? Like, how do you do this? Like, if anybody's ever written a book, they're a hero. And like, I'm like, this is wild. Like, and I think that's why, like, I see, whether it's like, what is it, Booklist or Goodreads, when you go and see the ratings of, people that have read the book, what they think of it, like 0 to 5 stars. Like, people are giving it 3 stars, and I'm like, what are you, out of your mind? Like, this book was fun, this book was fun, and like, you try it. Like, 5 stars every time.
Oh, authors. I'll forgive you for that. Critics, yes.
People give me a hard time because all my ratings are 4 or 5 stars, and I'm like, I liked it. What do you want me to do? And I thought it was good. They're like, I can't trust your ratings. Like, you're not. I'm like, I'm not a critic. I read the book. I liked it. I gave it 5 stars.
You're not a book snob.
No.
Good. We don't like that. Well, now I told you that some of the questions that my colleagues want to ask you and things like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you something.
What do you got?
Well, when we have this big thing with the Nets, and we're going to be out there promoting the book festival, there's going to be all that, we're going to be out there. I've got to do a pitch.
You're throwing out the first pitch.
Yeah, and I was wondering if you had any tips. They've already told me don't do this, which is what I was doing.
You want to throw it out. Yeah.
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 They told me
You
that.
think you're gonna throw from the mound, or are you gonna come in front? Hey, I'm gonna be honest. I would throw from in front of the mound if I could.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I'm good. So don't get up there.
You can if you want.
Don't get up there.
You can if you want. I'll be back there behind the plate. I'll catch it.
Oh, you'll be there.
I'll
Good.
be there.
Oh, thank God. Whew. Oh, well, now, okay, good. Because, thank you. I trust you. And you'll say, so you'll be there, and somebody will catch it.
I'll catch it.
Oh, this could be better than I thought. I've been a little stressed about it, Well, I've got a Librarian of Congress hat for you. Because I am already ready. You see the outfit? I'm ready. I'm going to be that. Oh, thank you.
We're trying to convert you to you're going to be a Nats fan now.
Yeah.
You're going to be a Nats fan.
Well, I grew up with, like, Ernie Banks. And that, yeah, gotta give Ernie a thing. But I'm getting there. Look.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Gotta do it. We'll do it. So we'll both do it. Okay, you'll be there. Would be good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna read the Octavia Butler book.
Yeah.
Gonna get it.
Yeah.
And we have something for you.
Something for me?
Yeah. Books. Now, somebody's supposed to bring them out. Come on out. Bring the books. Well, we thought you might want some baseball books.
Oh, yeah.
The Library of Congress has one of the largest collections of baseball cards. And so when I first got here, because I'm a baseball fan, we did a book, and I got to do the foreword, so we could do a book signing together. We could do that. And this is going to sound kind of funny. But
It's autographed.
Oh, of course. And we had the first ever baseball exhibit. I was kind of pushing for it. And so here's a book about it.
Wow.
Because of that collection. Because.
Wow.
And one of the collections that we have is the Branch Rickey collection. He was a talent scout manager, and we were so pleased when Hank Aaron got to see his scouting report. He'd never seen it. And the curator was very nervous because, he's reading it and everything, looking serious. And she said, well, sir, what do you think? He said he was right. And then my favorite branch, Ricky, one. He was very honest. He said, can't hit, can't run, don't hire. That was it. Three things. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate you being an ambassador for reading. You are cool, right? Okay, you gotta do the move. You gotta do the do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
They want your picture.
Thank you.
Maybe we should practice now. But they want you to leave.
Okay, I gotta go.
Thank you. Were you gonna do question and answer? Oh, we have time for questions. You want to ask us something?
For me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. I think we have some mics. And there's somebody there. Oh, let's take
Hello.
off our hats and sit down. Come on, sit down. You could get questions. There are 2 mics there.
Okay.
Well, cool.
All right.
Sean, so you mentioned that you like to have your books around to impress people. And at my house, I definitely have one book that is there solely to impress people because I can't seem to actually make my way through it, and that's Infinite Jest. And I'm wondering if there's one book that you have that you just really haven't been able to get through or have been meaning to pick up, but you just can't seem to get to.
The only book that I started and couldn't finish, and I tried a couple of times, was Catch-22, which, I don't know, that was a spicy, when I said that on Twitter, that was a spicy take.
I know.
Like, I feel like when I start something, I gotta finish it. So there's been a few that I've kind of slogged through, but I've been able to enjoy almost everything I've read, but I couldn't get past the first 100 pages. I tried a couple times, and I had to give it a rest.
Let it go. There's built guilt.
There's too many books.
Yeah. Don't like it, put it down.
Hello, Mr. Doolittle. First, I would like to thank you and your wife for using your platform that you have to focus on issues that are great importance to many people, human rights, LGBT rights. Thank you for that. I'd also like to ask if there are any particular books that you recommend that maybe spurred your activism, your the causes that you and to a large extent a lot of us hold dear that really touched you and you'd recommend to others.
That's a good question. I'm sure there are, and I don't have my phone out here because I have a list of all the books I read on my phone. I can't. I'm drawing a blank right now. You kind of put me on the spot, and I'm drawing a blank.
It's Q&A.
It's cool. I'll give you my cell.
I think. So I think like
Call me.
I have read like there have been a lot of books. So like I'm really involved with the Players Association, the union that represents the baseball players, and so I've tried to read labor books because I think the Players Association we're in a unique position as a very visible labor union in a time where the labor movement is doing a lot of really inspiring things. The Starbucks workers come to mind, the Alabama coal miners come to mind. Trying books like one of the best ones that I read was a book called Beaten Up and Worked Down by Steve Greenhouse. Mike Davis wrote an incredibly, it's dense, but it's incredibly powerful and comprehensive book on labor that took me a while to get through, but I absolutely loved it. And then when it came to baseball, Lords of the Realm by John Haylar is considered to kind of be the gold standard. But there were there were other books like Baseball's Power Shift by John Krister Swanson and The Great Baseball Revolt of 1890 by Robert Ross that really kind of tied it together and brought it back to baseball for me. But as far as like social, like stuff that's going on right now, a lot of that comes from fiction, and a lot of that comes from authors developing these characters, trying to navigate this world. And I don't think, like I'm not a big nonfiction person, so like you don't have to pick up a book and feel like you're like doing research in order to learn about what's going on right now. Like, so that's why like I've been able to get that from a lot of the books, the fiction books that I've read.
Hi, so I actually grew up in the town where you went to high school, and I know it's not a place that fosters a lot of activism, and I know you just spoke about how books have helped, but how has baseball played a part in your activism?
Well, shout out Medford, New Jersey, by the way.
Go Shawnee!
That's really cool, and I appreciate you coming tonight. That's really cool. I think baseball has given me the platform to do a lot of the work that my wife and I have been involved in. It's opened doors for us that I don't think we would have otherwise thought were possible. We've gotten to meet people, and traveling and getting involved in the communities that we've played in, and trying to give back. The fans support us so much by coming to the games, and we want to give back to the communities that we play in. So I think recognizing how lucky I am to play Major League Baseball and to play a sport for a living. It's only 23,000 people have ever played in the major leagues, in the history of the major leagues. So there's almost that many people here right now. But like realizing how lucky I am, the things that I have access to, I realize are things that not enough people have access to, whether it's the safety nets of the income that comes with being a player, or healthcare, or pensions and benefits and stuff like that. And I think that when you end up in a position that's essentially at the top of the food chain, you have an obligation. You should be looking for ways to bring people up with you. And so that's kind of been like one of the themes that my wife and I have tried to focus on and get involved in.
Is there a certain book that you either have made go viral, use the parlance, within a clubhouse, or that you would like to see take off within the Nats or any baseball team?
I did get a bunch of guys reading some of those baseball labor books that I had talked about before, starting in like 2020 during the shutdown, because we did have some serious labor issues trying to negotiate the restart to the season. So reading books like Lords of the Realm, and even recommending to our younger guys, trying to get them to understand the history of our union and what guys before us have fought for, recommending books like there's a book called A Well-Paid Slave, which is Curt Flood's biography, and he's absolutely he's like every player's hero, because laying down his career for the right for us to be able to choose what teams we want to play for and have a say in the direction our careers go. So I think like when it comes to books in the clubhouse, those are the closest ones that I have gotten like multiple guys to get interested in. I tried earlier this year with somebody was asking me what I was reading, and at the time I was reading The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's a fantasy book. It's the first in the Gentleman Bastards trilogy, and I was like, you gotta check this out. It's like one of the most fun books I've ever read so far. Like, I love it. And the guy started reading it, and he was like, yo, there's like a glossary in the back with like I was like, yeah, like he's world building. Like we're building a new world. Like he's got to explain there's backstories and folklore and like this world's existed for a really long time before, you know, this book is set. Like he's got to fill in the gaps and you know, there's different things you got to, I was like, but just, you know, the first 50 pages kind of lay the groundwork and then you'll be good to go. And he's like, I'm flipping to the back and I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. He's like, no. Like,
he didn't make it through.
no. So I tried. I'll keep trying. Don't worry.
Hey, I just wanted to know if possibly you and Josh Bell were book buddies, or do you have any particular Nats that you like to talk books with?
Yeah, I like your shirt, first of all.
Thank you.
And so I think like JB and I, like our selections of books, I think complement each other really well. So we do discuss what we're reading and we make recommendations to each other, which I think has been good because like I said, like if I was left to like my own bubble, like there's only like one kind of book I would read. It would be like dystopian fantasy fiction and like, you know, so it helps me branch out. He reads a lot of books that are like, personal growth kind of stuff, stuff that falls closer to the category of what I was talking about before, reading some philosophy stuff, stuff that helps him get in a good headspace to, you know, prepare himself before a game, or stuff that'll help him in the off season, just life stuff in general, I guess, stuff that's more nonfiction. So I think we've been able to exchange some ideas and talk about what we're reading and kind of, like I said, complement each other on some ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, one more.
Hey, Sean.
Oh, cool.
Hi.
Oh,
Thanks for signing my hat the
I'll
other
say.
day.
What's that?
Thanks for signing my cap 2 nights ago. Stop.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. For me personally, I'm a kind of a slow reader. I've never been a really good reader in general. I don't know where my sister went, but she could probably read a book a day. For me, it could take me months, maybe a year to read one book. I'll put it down, pick it up again. But for you, like, what's like the longest it's ever taken you to finish a book, like from when you opened it to when you're...
It varies. There's some books that I can fly through and read in a couple days, and then there's other books that, like, it might take a little bit more work. It depends on how I'm vibing with the way the author wrote the book, their style of writing maybe, if there's dialogue in the book or not, like how I'm vibing with that. You know, I don't think there should be any pressure to read the book at a certain pace.
right.
When I read nonfiction, I read super slow. I can read a couple pages at a time, and then I got to put it down. When it comes to, you know, I think the thing about reading is like, it's competing with our attention with a lot of other things, right? Whether it's like stuff on your phone or video games, TV, like there's other stuff going on. So like even for me, like as much as I love reading, like there's some times where like I'll sit down in the chair and like my book will be like right here, and like I'll pull out my phone and I'm like, 20 minutes go by and I'm just like, what happened? Like I haven't read anything. I read my phone and that's it. Like, you know, so like getting into some kind of habit of like, all right, like I'm just gonna sit here for like a half an hour and maybe I can get through a chapter or whatever. Like, you know, turn your phone over so it's not lighting up, or you know, do it at the end of the day before you go to bed. That's one thing. Like, where in baseball we're really conscious of recovery and sleep, and you recover a heck of a lot better, you sleep a heck of a lot better if you're not looking at a screen right before you go to bed. So I've tried to make that part of my routine where I'm getting, even if it's just like a few pages, I might be tired or whatever, but even if I'm just reading a few pages before bed. So it's hard to say. Like, there have been a couple books that have taken me a couple months. I read a book by Brandon Sanderson, The Way of Kings. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's a very long fantasy book, but that took me like 2 months, and it was fine. Like it was so fun that like I came back to it and I could read a little bit each day, but I'm looking at my bookmark and I'm like, I'm not making any progress. So like it's all good. Like go at your own pace, and that's all the more reason. Like if you are a slow reader and it is going to take you time to get through a book, like make sure you're reading something that you enjoy, that you find that you're connecting with. And if you're not, find something else. There's too many good things out there.
Might have to be the right book.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to end on a question this young lady wanted to know.
Sorry, yeah, you talk about your dogs. I love my dogs. I love reading. They kind of go together. But you've got to be like the best fetch partner.
That's a good one.
They're not, the question, she asked about our dogs, and if, she said, do you think your dogs realize that you're one of the best fetch players? And we do. We have two dogs. We have Fia and Rooney. They're both red heeler mixes. Fia is almost 3 and Rooney is almost 2. Red heelers have tons of energy, so they do need to go to the park and get some of that energy out, and it's one of our favorite things to do with the dogs, and they're not fetch dogs, so they don't care. Like, I'll throw it, and they'll look at it, and then they'll look back at me, and they'll be like, I'm not running to get that. Like, that's too far away. Like, as they're herding dogs, right? So they want to make sure, like, that like my wife and I are like in the right spot. So like they'll run around, they'll play with some other dogs, and then they'll come back and like do a couple circles around us, and then like they'll go play. But like they're not great at fetch, which
It's kind of ironic.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, oh, okay. One more, and you've got a young person right there.
You talked a little bit about your all-time favorite book.
Yeah.
Do you have any, or did you have any all-time favorite books as a kid?
Yeah. So I alluded to one before. They pulled it out for me when I was getting a tour. It was a book called The Kid Who Only Hit Homers. It was by Matt Christopher, and he wrote books about a lot of different kids playing sports, and those were some of my favorites. I was really into the Goosebumps series. There was a book called Wayside School is Falling Down that I really liked. Yeah.
Oh, that got a lot of.
I was really into Calvin and Hobbes books, and those only barely count. But I used to like flip through them, and then I would draw the characters, and I liked that. And I think my parents were just happy I wasn't outside like getting into trouble, and they were like, "That's not really a book. You come home from the book fair." They're like, "What'd you get?" And I'm like, "A comic book," and they're like, "Okay, fine, whatever."
I think it turned out all right. Well,
I think we have one more over here.
Oh, one more?
Yeah, we have
You
one
wanna
more.
See? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for being here. This is awesome. So I was just wondering, like, I know that a lot of your teammates have very different worldviews from you, and I was just wondering if books have been something that has allowed you to kind of have conversations that can like bridge some of that, and also, you don't have to answer this question, but my other question is, like, if you could have everybody on the team read one book, what would it be?
Ooh, that's
Wow,
a
that's a really good question. That's a really good question. The first book that jumped to mind was Parable of the Sower, just because it is all-encompassing with so many of these things, from climate change to income disparity, gender and race issues. Because I think one thing that people who are like somewhat okay with the status quo kind of suffer from, it's like a lack of imagination about like the direction that we're going, that we could go if things continue going this direction. So like that's another thing that fantasy fiction and dystopian fiction can do, is like, well, it might sound hysterical, or it might sound overblown, but it's a warning, right? It should be like a shot across the bow or a wake-up call, maybe. So I know it's one of the books we talked about the most, but for fiction, because I think it's readable. Doesn't have a glossary in the back. There's no maps or anything like that. It's set in America. It's set in California. That's the first one that came to mind. But when it comes to politics and stuff in the clubhouse, I think there's almost like an unspoken understanding about who I am and what I do, and I think they respect the fact that my wife and I are really involved in the community, and we're not just running our mouth on social media, that we do try to get involved and do some homework and back up our words and stuff like that. So politics doesn't get discussed in the clubhouse, I think, as much as people might think. We do talk a little bit about it, but at that point it's like, man, like we're all adults, and it could be tough to really change someone's mind. So I think just by having a couple discussions. So I've always felt like the best way is to lead by example and not get drawn into a bad faith argument and allow the things that we do outside of the field kind of speak for us when it comes to that kind of stuff. But like I said, I think there's a mutual understanding about where we're at, where different guys are coming from, what different guys feel or believe on certain things like that. And I've been very lucky that the Nationals have given me a little bit of a leash to do some things in the community, and not just to do them, but to help set them up. One thing that I'll never forget was for Pride Night in 2019 when they got rainbow cakes for everybody that was there right after the Supreme Court decision came down. And I thought, that was absolutely beautiful. And they've been so supportive of me and my wife that I'm really lucky that I landed here, because I don't know if there's a lot of teams around the league that would at least be as encouraging and supportive. So we're very grateful for that.
So, book club. They're giving us the thing. So you're going to have a team book club.
Yeah, me and JB, we're going to start a book club.
Watch for that. Well, thank you. They really want us to go. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
No. Get back here. Get back here.